Clara Whitmore's knees hit the dirt before she could stop them. 4 hungry children. 12 days of walking. And now this stranger stood in his doorway, staring at her like she was nothing but trouble he didn't need. "Please," the words scraped out of her throat. "My babies ain't eaten in 3 days." The rancher's jaw tightened. His hand moved toward the door. She grabbed his boot. "I'll sleep with the horses. I'll work for scraps. Just don't let my children die tonight." Subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story of survival and second chances can travel. The summer sun had been brutal for 12 straight days. Clara Whitmore knew this because she'd counted every single one of them. Every blister, every hungry cry from her children, every mile of dust that caked their throats until swallowing felt like eating sand. She shifted 2-year-old Samuel higher on her hip. The boy had stopped crying yesterday. That scared her more than the crying ever had. "Mama," 6-year-old Ellie tugged at her torn skirt. "Mama, my feet hurt." "I know, baby. When we gonna stop?" Clara looked at the ranch house sitting at the end of the dirt road. It was the first structure they'd seen in 2 days. Smoke curled from the chimney despite the heat. Someone was home. "Right now," she said. "We're gonna stop right now." 4-year-old twins Jacob and Hannah stumbled behind her, holding hands like they'd done since they learned to walk. Their faces were sunburned and hollow. Their eyes had lost that spark children were supposed to have. Thomas would have known what to do. Thomas always knew. But Thomas was dead, shot through the chest 3 weeks ago by men who wanted their wagon more than they wanted to let a family live. She'd watched him fall, watched his blood soak into the dirt of the California trail, watched his eyes find hers one last time before the light went out of them forever. "Keep moving," he'd gasped. "Don't stop. Don't trust nobody." She'd tried. God help her, she'd tried. But 12 days of walking, with 4 children under 7 years old, had broken something inside her. Pride. Hope. Whatever it was that kept a person putting one foot in front of the other when every step felt like dying. Clara climbed the porch steps on legs that shook. She raised her fist to knock, then stopped. What if they turned her away? What if this was just another door that wouldn't open? She'd tried 3 farmhouses already. The first one, an old woman had looked at her 4 children and said, "Ain't got room for beggars." The second, a man had offered her food in exchange for something she'd never give. The third hadn't even answered the door, though she'd seen the curtain twitch. Samuel whimpered against her shoulder. Clara knocked. The sound echoed. Nothing happened. She knocked again, harder this time, her knuckles splitting against the rough wood. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. The footsteps of a man who wasn't in any hurry. The door swung open. He was tall. That was the first thing she noticed. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair going gray at the temples, and a beard that hadn't been trimmed in weeks. His eyes were brown, but there was something dead about them, something that had stopped feeling a long time ago. He looked at her, then at the children clustered behind her like frightened rabbits. His jaw tightened. "Whatever you're selling, I ain't buying." "I ain't selling nothing," Clara's voice cracked. "Please, mister. My husband's dead. We've been walking for 12 days. My baby's—" "Not my concern." He started to close the door. Clara's hand shot out before she could think. She grabbed the doorframe, splinters biting into her palm. "I ain't asking for charity. I'll work. I'll clean your house, tend your animals, cook your meals. I'll sleep in the barn with my children. I just need—" "Lady." His voice was flat, cold. "I said no." Clara's knees buckled. She didn't mean for it to happen, But her body had finally given up what her mind had been fighting for days. She went down hard, one hand still gripping the doorframe. Samuel clutched against her chest. "Mama!" Ellie screamed. The rancher stepped back like Clara was a snake that might bite him. "Please." Clara looked up at him from the ground, all pride gone, all pretense stripped away. "Please, they ain't eaten in 3 days. Samuel stopped crying yesterday. You know what that means? It means he ain't got the strength left to cry. It means he's giving up. He's 2 years old, and he's giving up." The rancher's face didn't change, but something flickered in those dead eyes. Something human. My Ellie walked until her shoes fell apart. She'd been walking barefoot for 4 days. My twins ain't said a word since their daddy died. They just hold hands and follow wherever I lead them. And I've been leading them to nothing but more dust and more hunger and more doors that won't open. Tears she'd been holding back for 12 days finally broke free. "I know I ain't got nothing to offer you. I know we look like trouble you don't need. But I'm begging you, mister, not for me, for them. Just one night, just one meal. Then we'll be gone and you can go back to whatever it is you're doing here alone in this house, with them dead eyes and that cold heart." Silence. The children huddled together behind her, too exhausted and scared to cry. The rancher stared down at Clara for a long moment, his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "Dead eyes," he said quietly. "Cold heart." "I didn't mean—" "You meant it." He crouched down, bringing himself to her level. "You're right. I got both. Been dead inside for 3 years now. Ain't seen no reason to change that." Clara's heart sank. He was going to refuse. He was going to close that door, and she'd have to get up somehow and keep walking with these 4 starving children until— "But I ain't gonna let babies die on my porch." He stood and held out his hand. Clara stared at it like it might be a trap. After 3 weeks of running, hiding, begging, she'd forgotten what kindness looked like. "Take it before I change my mind," he said. She took it. His hand was rough and calloused, the hand of a man who worked hard. He pulled her up with surprising gentleness, steadying her when she swayed. "Ellie, is it?" He looked at the oldest girl. "You and your brother and sister come inside. There's water in the kitchen and bread in the box. Can you get them something to drink while I help your mama?" Ellie's eyes went wide. She looked at Clara. "Go on, baby. It's okay." The 3 children shuffled past the rancher into the house. Clara heard Ellie gasp, probably at the sight of actual food, and then the sounds of children drinking water like they'd never tasted again. "Give me the boy." Clara clutched Samuel tighter. "I got him." "Lady, you can barely stand. Give me the boy before you drop him." She didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at her to hold on, to protect, to never let go. But her arms were shaking so bad she knew he was right. She let him take Samuel. The rancher held the 2-year-old awkwardly, like he'd forgotten how to hold a child. Samuel stirred against his chest, then did something he hadn't done in 3 days. He cried. The rancher's face changed. For just a second, something broke through that dead mask. Pain, raw and deep and old. "There now," he said, his voice rough. "There now, little man. You're all right." Clara's legs gave out again. This time the rancher caught her. She woke up in a bed, a real bed, with clean sheets and a soft pillow. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, or dead. Either one seemed more likely than the truth. "Mama?" Ellie's face appeared above her, worried but no longer desperate. "Baby." Clara reached up to touch her daughter's cheek. "Where—" "The rancher man put you here. He said you fainted from not eating. He made us soup, Mama. Real soup with potatoes and carrots and everything. And he gave Samuel milk. Samuel drank so much milk his tummy got all round. Clara struggled to sit up. Her head spun, but the room stayed solid around her. It was a simple room, a man's room, with few decorations and practical furniture. But it was clean, well kept. And on the nightstand sat a bowl of soup, still steaming, with a thick slice of bread beside it. "He said you gotta eat when you wake up," Ellie reported. "He said if you don't eat, you'll faint again, and he ain't got time to keep catching you." Clara almost laughed. "Almost. Where is he?" "Outside with the twins. He's showing them the chickens." "Jacob actually smiled, Mama. I ain't seen Jacob smile since Daddy." Her voice trailed off. Clara pulled her daughter close, breathing in the smell of her hair, dusty and unwashed, but alive, gloriously, impossibly alive. "I know, baby, I know." She ate the soup. It was simple, just vegetables and broth and some kind of meat, but it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. When the bowl was empty, she forced herself to stand, gripping the bedpost until the dizziness passed. She found the rancher in the yard. He sat on an overturned bucket while the twins stood a few feet away, watching chickens peck at the ground. Jacob had a piece of corn in his hand, holding it out hesitantly. One of the hens was slowly making her way toward him. The rancher saw Clara coming and stood. "You shouldn't be up yet." "I've been up for 12 days. Ain't gonna stop now." "Stubborn." "It's kept my children alive." He almost smiled. Not quite, but close enough that she could see the ghost of what his face must have looked like before whatever happened to make it so hard. "I don't even know your name," Clara said. "Ezra. Ezra Cade." "Clara Whitmore, but I reckon you already knew that from going through my things." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Had to know who I was letting into my house." "And what did you find?" "Marriage certificate, $3.42. A photograph of a man I'm guessing was your husband. 4 children who look like they've been through hell, and a woman who looks like she's still there." Clara's throat tightened. "That about sums it up." "How'd he die?" The question was blunt, but not unkind. Just direct, the way some men were when they'd seen enough of life to stop dancing around the hard parts. "Outlaws. Hit our wagon on the California Trail. Took everything we had, horses, supplies, money. When Thomas tried to stop them, She stopped, breathed. "They shot him. And you walked. 12 days with 4 children. Wasn't nothing else to do. Stay there and die, or walk, and maybe live. Thomas told me to keep moving, so I kept moving." Ezra studied her face. Clara didn't know what he was looking for, but she was too tired to try to be anything other than what she was. A widow, a mother, a woman who'd used up every last bit of strength just to reach this stranger's door. "Those outlaws," he said. "They still out there?" "Reckon so." "They hurt you? Besides taking your things, I mean." Clara's hands clenched. "They tried. I had a knife. Thomas gave it to me before. She swallowed. "Got one of them in the arm pretty good. That's when they decided killing him and taking the wagon was enough. They left us on the trail and rode off laughing." "How many?" 5, 6 maybe. It was dark. I wasn't counting. I was just trying to keep my children from seeing their daddy's blood." A muscle jumped in Ezra's jaw. "They got a name? A brand? Anything I could use to identify them?" Clara looked at him sharply. "Why? You thinking of going after them?" "I'm thinking a woman and 4 children walking across open country make easy targets. If these men are still around, if they found out you survived, they might come looking." The thought turned Clara's blood to ice. She'd been so focused on food and shelter that she hadn't let herself consider the possibility of the outlaws tracking them down, of finishing what they'd started. There was one, the leader, I think. The others called him Silas. He had a scar here. She traced a line from her own temple to her jaw. And he wore a cavalry coat. Gray. Confederate. Ezra went very still. What? Clara asked. Nothing. Just a name I ain't heard in a long time. You know him? Knew him. During the war. Ezra's voice had gone flat again, all the almost warmth draining away. We served on opposite sides, had some disagreements. What kind of disagreements? The kind that end with men dying? Clara stepped back instinctively. She'd trusted this man with her children, let him hold Samuel, eaten his food, and now he was telling her he had history with the man who killed her husband? Ezra saw her reaction, and his face hardened further. I ain't him, Mrs. Whitmore. Whatever you're thinking right now, I ain't Silas Dunn, and I ain't nothing like him. Then what are you? A man who lost everything and been trying to die slowly ever since. A man who ain't talked to another soul in 3 months before you knocked on my door. A man who is about to turn you away and let you and those children keep walking into nothing because he was too dead inside to care. He turned toward the house. But your girl grabbed my boot, and your boy started crying when I picked him up. And I remembered what that sound used to mean, what it meant when my own boy used to cry. Before he died. Before my wife died, trying to birth him. Before this house became nothing but a tomb with a roof. Clara's anger faded as quickly as it had come. I'm sorry, she said softly. Don't be. Ain't your burden to carry. Ezra stopped at the porch steps. You can stay until you're strong enough to travel again. A week, maybe 2. I'll give you supplies, point you toward the nearest town with decent folk. After that, you're on your own. And if Silas comes looking? Ezra's back was still turned, but Clara saw his shoulders stiffen. Then I'll deal with him, way I should have dealt with him 15 years ago. The first 3 days passed in a haze of recovery. Clara slept more than she had in weeks, her body finally giving in to exhaustion now that her children were safe. Ezra moved through the house like a ghost, providing meals and fresh water and clean clothes without being asked, but never staying long enough for real conversation. The children adapted faster than she'd expected. Ellie took over feeding the chickens like she'd been born to it. The twins started speaking again, first to each other in whispers, then to Ezra in short sentences that made him uncomfortable in a way that would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. Mr. Ezra? Hannah asked on the 3rd morning. How come you ain't got no pictures on your walls? Don't need pictures. Everybody needs pictures. How else do you remember the people you love? Ezra set down his coffee cup. Maybe I don't want to remember. That's sad. That's life, little miss. Samuel was the most changed. He'd gone from silent and listless to babbling and laughing, following Ezra around the house like a duckling following its mother. Ezra clearly didn't know what to do with this attention. He tripped over the boy 3 times the first day and threatened to put him in the chicken coop if he didn't stop being underfoot. Samuel just laughed and grabbed his pant leg. He likes you, Clara observed from the porch. He don't know better. Children know. They got a sense for these things. Ezra grunted and pried Samuel's fingers off his leg for the 4th time. He's got a sense for making my work take twice as long. But Clara noticed he slowed his pace so Samuel could keep up. And when he went to the barn, he started carrying the boy on his hip instead of leaving him behind. On the 4th night, after the children were asleep in the room Ezra had prepared for them, his wife's sewing room, Clara suspected, based on the fabric scraps still in the corners, she found him on the porch, staring at nothing. Can't sleep? She asked. Don't sleep much. Haven't for years. Clara sat on the step below him, keeping a respectful distance. The night air was warm and thick with the smell of summer grass. Stars covered the sky like scattered diamonds. You gonna tell me about Silas? Ezra was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was talking about someone else's life. We were at Shiloh together. Different sides, obviously. He was Confederate cavalry, I was Union infantry. There was a farmhouse. He stopped. Started again. There was a family in that farmhouse. Mother, father, 3 children. They weren't soldiers. They weren't a threat. They were just trying to survive the war like everybody else. Clara felt her stomach clench. She knew where this was going. Silas and his men found them first. By the time my unit got there, Ezra's hands tightened on his knees. I tried to stop him. We fought. I got this. He touched the scar that ran along his ribs, visible where his shirt had come untucked. He got away, disappeared after the war ended. I heard rumors over the years, stagecoach robberies, homesteads burned, families killed, but I never could find him. And now he found me. Looks that way. Is that why you let us stay? Because of your guilt over that farmhouse? Ezra finally looked at her. In the starlight, his eyes didn't look dead anymore. They looked haunted, which, Clara realized, was somehow worse. I let you stay because your daughter grabbed my boot and reminded me what it feels like to have someone need you. I let you stay because your boy cried in my arms, and I remembered what it sounded like when things still mattered. I let you stay because you looked up at me from the ground and called me dead-eyed and cold-hearted, and you were right. But for a second, just a second, I wanted to prove you wrong. Clara's breath caught. That don't mean I'm a good man, Ezra continued. Don't mean I'm going to be what you need or what them children need. I told you, 2 weeks and supplies. Then you're on your own. I ain't got room for more than that. I ain't asking for more. Good. But Clara saw the way he looked toward the room where her children slept, saw the way his hands relaxed when Samuel laughed, saw the ghost of the man he used to be, fighting to break through the shell of the man he'd become. He was lying. He had room for more. He was just too scared to admit it. And Clara, God help her, was starting to want to be the one who showed him. On the 5th morning, everything changed. Clara was in the kitchen, teaching Ellie how to make biscuits with the flour Ezra had provided, when the sound of horses made them both freeze. Stay here, Clara ordered. She moved to the window, heart pounding. 3 men on horseback were approaching the house. One of them wore a gray Confederate coat, and he had a scar running from his temple to his jaw. Clara's blood turned to ice. Ellie, her voice came out steadier than she felt. Get your brother and sister. Go to the root cellar. Take Samuel. Don't come out until I come get you. You understand? Mama, what's... Now, Ellie. Go, now. Ellie grabbed the twins and ran. Clara heard the root cellar door creak open, then shut. She looked around for a weapon, found a knife on the counter, grabbed it. The front door opened, but it wasn't Silas. It was Ezra coming in from the barn, his face grim and his rifle in his hands. I saw them, he said. 3 riders, Silas in front. How did he find us? Don't matter how. He's here. Ezra moved to the window, positioning himself where he could see the approaching men. You stay in the back. If things go wrong, you take those children and run. I ain't leaving you two. This ain't about me. Ezra turned, and for the first time since she'd met him, there was fire in his eyes. Real fire. The kind that came from having something to protect. This is about them babies in that cellar. You understand? Whatever happens to me, you get them out. You keep them safe. That's all that matters. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he mattered too, that in 5 short days he'd become something more than a stranger with a spare room. But the horses were stopping in front of the house, and Silas Dunn's voice rang out, cold and mocking. "Ezra Cade, been a long time, old friend. Heard you got yourself some company. Thought I'd come say hello." Ezra's grip tightened on the rifle. Through the window, he could see Silas dismounting, that same lazy confidence he remembered from 15 years ago. The scar Clara had described caught the morning light, a reminder of their last encounter, when Ezra's blade had found flesh, but failed to find the throat. "Stay back," Ezra said without turning. Clara pressed against the wall, the kitchen knife still clutched in her hand. "I ain't hiding while you face him alone." "You ain't got a choice." "The hell I don't. He killed my husband. And he'll kill your children if you give him half a reason." Ezra finally looked at her. "I know what he is. I know what he does. You go out there, you're just giving him leverage. You understand?" Clara's jaw clenched, but she nodded. Ezra opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Silas Dunn stood in the yard with his arms spread wide, like he was greeting an old friend. The 2 men behind him kept their hands near their guns, but they hadn't drawn. Not yet. "Well, well," Silas grinned, and the expression made his scar twist into something ugly. "Ezra Cade, last I heard you'd crawled into a hole somewhere to die. Imagine my surprise when one of my boys spotted a familiar-looking widow heading this direction." "She ain't here." "Now, Ezra, we both know that's a lie." Silas took a step forward. "See, we've been tracking that woman for near on 2 weeks. Lost her trail for a bit, I'll admit. But then my man Billy here remembered there was a union dog living out this way. A union dog who always did have a soft spot for strays." "Turn around and ride out, Silas. This don't have to go the way you're thinking." "Oh, but I think it does." Silas's grin faded. "That woman saw my face. Her brats saw my face. Can't have witnesses, Ezra. You know how it is. Business is business." "There ain't no business here. Just a man telling you to get off his land." Silas laughed. "Your land, right. This piece of dirt you've been rotting on since your wife died." He shook his head. "I heard about that, by the way. Real tragedy. Pretty little thing, wasn't she? Shame about the baby, too." Ezra's finger moved to the trigger. Silas raised one hand. "You shoot me, my boys shoot you, and then we walk right into that house and take our time with whatever we find inside. That what you want?" "What I want is to finish what I started at Shiloh." "Shiloh," Silas spat in the dirt. "You still crying about that farmhouse? They were Confederate sympathizers, Ezra. They got what was coming to them." "They were children." "They were the enemy's children. There's a difference." "No." Ezra's voice dropped low. "There ain't." For a long moment, neither man moved. The morning heat pressed down like a weight, and somewhere in the distance a crow called out, harsh and mocking. Then Silas smiled again. "Tell you what, I'm a reasonable man. You hand over the woman and her brats, I'll let you live. Hell, I'll even make it quick for them. Quicker than what I had planned, anyway. You ain't touching them. Then we got ourselves a problem." Silas's hand drifted toward his holster. "Because I ain't leaving without what I came for." The shot came from behind Ezra. It wasn't aimed at Silas. It punched into the dirt at his feet, making him jump back with a curse. Ezra spun to see Clara standing in the doorway, a smoking pistol in her hands. His pistol, the one he'd left on the kitchen table. "Next one goes in your chest," Clara said. Her voice shook, but her aim didn't. "You murdered my husband. You left my children to starve." You think I won't pull this trigger?" Silas's eyes went wide, then narrow. Well, well, the widow's got some fight in her after all. I remember you, sweetheart. You stuck one of my boys with a knife that night. He still ain't got full use of that arm. Should have aimed for his throat. "Clara!" Ezra's voice was tight. "Get back inside." "No." "Woman, I said no." Clara stepped fully onto the porch, the pistol never wavering. "I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'm done letting men like him decide whether my children live or die." Silas laughed, but there was something different in it now. Something that sounded almost like respect. "You got guts, I'll give you that. More guts than your husband had. He just stood there crying when I put the bullet in him. Kept saying, 'Please,' like that word ever stopped anything." Clara's face went white. "Don't you talk about him. He begged, you know, right at the end. Begged me to spare you and the little ones. Said he'd do anything. Anything at all." Silas's grin turned cruel. "But I already had everything I wanted from that wagon. Well, almost everything." The pistol barked. This time Clara wasn't aiming at the ground. The bullet caught one of Silas's men in the shoulder, spinning him off his horse with a scream. The second man went for his gun, but Ezra was faster. His rifle cracked and the man crumpled. Silas dove for cover behind his horse. "Get inside!" Ezra grabbed Clara's arm and yanked her back through the doorway as bullets started flying. Wood splintered around them. Glass shattered. "The children!" Clara tried to pull away. "They're in the cellar. If he finds them, he won't. Not if we keep him busy out front." Ezra shoved her toward the back of the house, then moved to the window. He could see Silas crouched behind his horse, reloading. The man Clara had shot was crawling toward the tree line, leaving a trail of blood. "Two down," Ezra muttered. "But he said, 'my boys.' How many you see when they hit your wagon?" "5, maybe 6. "Then there's more coming." As if summoned by the words, the thunder of hoofbeats rose from the east. 3 more riders, pushing their horses hard toward the ranch. Clara's face went gray. "Oh, God." "Cellar, now."
"What about you?" "I'll hold them off."
"Ezra, I said go." He turned and grabbed her shoulders, his face inches from hers. "Your children are down there alone and scared. They need their mother, not me. You understand? They need you alive." "And what do you need?" The question stopped him cold. For 3 years, he'd needed nothing. Wanted nothing. He'd been content to fade away in this empty house, waiting for death to finally notice him. But now, looking into this woman's terrified, defiant eyes, he felt something he'd thought was long dead. He needed them to survive. All of them. "I need you to trust me," he said quietly. "Can you do that?" Clara stared at him for one endless heartbeat. Then she nodded. "Don't die," she said. "Wasn't planning on it." She ran for the cellar. Ezra turned back to the window, just as the first of the new riders came into range. He fired, missed, fired again. This time the horse went down, throwing its rider into the dirt. Before the man could rise, Ezra put another bullet in him. "Cade!" Silas's voice rang out from somewhere to the left. He'd moved, used the chaos of the reinforcements to change position. "You just made this personal, old friend. I was going to make it quick, but now? Now I'm going to make you watch while I—" Another shot, this one from a different direction. It punched through the window frame, showering Ezra with splinters. He dropped below the sill, blood running down his cheek from a dozen tiny cuts. They were flanking him. The front door burst open. Ezra rolled, brought the rifle up, and fired at the figure rushing through. The man screamed and fell, clutching his gut. But there was another one right behind him, and Ezra's rifle was empty. He swung it like a club. The stock connected with the man's jaw, dropping him to one knee. Ezra hit him again, harder, And this time he went down and stayed down. But the distraction had cost him. Something hard and cold pressed against the back of his head. "Drop it," Silas said. Ezra dropped the rifle. "Turn around. Slow." He turned. Silas Dunn stood there, that same ugly grin splitting his face. His pistol was steady, aimed right between Ezra's eyes. "You know," Silas said conversationally, "I've thought about this moment for 15 years. Ever since you gave me this." He touched his scar. "Wondered what it'd feel like to finally put you down. Now I get to find out." "Just do it." Silas's grin faltered. "What?" "I said just do it. Pull the trigger. End this." "Now where's the fun in that?" Silas laughed, but it was uncertain now. "First, you're going to tell me where the woman and her brats are hiding. Then we're going to have ourselves a little reunion." "No." "No?" Silas pressed the gun harder against Ezra's forehead. "I don't think you understand the situation here." "I understand it fine. You're going to kill me either way. Might as well do it now and save yourself the trouble of looking." "You think I won't find them? This house ain't that big." "You might. Or you might spend the next hour searching, while every farmer within 5 miles comes running to see what all the shooting's about. Your choice." Silas's jaw tightened. He glanced toward the back of the house, calculating. That was his mistake. Ezra moved. He grabbed the pistol and shoved it upward just as Silas fired. The bullet went through the ceiling. Ezra drove his elbow into Silas's throat, felt the man gag and stumble, then wrenched the gun free and brought it down hard on the side of his head. Silas crumpled. Ezra stood over him, breathing hard, the pistol shaking in his hand. He could end it now. One bullet. Finish what he should have finished 15 years ago. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Mr. Ezra?" The small voice came from behind him. He spun. Samuel stood at the edge of the hallway, his thumb in his mouth, his eyes wide. He must have climbed out of the cellar, must have followed the sounds of violence to find the only man besides his daddy who'd ever made him feel safe. "Mr. Ezra, I scared." All the rage drained out of Ezra like water through a sieve. He holstered the pistol and crossed to the boy in 3 strides, scooping him up and holding him tight. "I know, little man. I know. But it's okay now. You're okay." "Bad men?" "The bad men are going away." "Promise?" Ezra looked at Silas's unconscious form, at the bodies littering his front room, at the blood on his hands and the splinters in his face. "Promise," he said. Clara burst through the back door, her face wild with fear. "Samuel! Samuel, where?" She saw them and stopped. Saw Silas on the floor. Saw Ezra holding her son. "It's over," Ezra said. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were a lie. Silas Dunn wasn't dead. And men like him never stopped. Not until someone made them. Clara took Samuel from Ezra's arms, clutching the boy so tight he squeaked in protest. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. But her eyes were dry, and her voice was steady when she spoke. "What do we do with him?" Ezra looked down at Silas. The man was starting to stir, groaning as consciousness crept back. "I should kill him." "But you won't." "No." Ezra's jaw clenched. "There's been enough killing in front of your children." "Then what?" "We tie him up. Ride to town. Get the sheriff." He paused. "It's a 2-hour ride, maybe more." "And if he has more men?" "Then we pray they don't get here before I get back." Clara's face went pale, but she nodded. "Do it. Go." I'll watch him. Clara, I can shoot Ezra. You saw that. And I ain't gonna let him hurt my babies. She met his eyes, and there was something there that hadn't been there 5 days ago. Something hard and fierce and unbreakable.
Go get the sheriff. I'll hold this house until you get back.
Ezra wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed at him to stay, to protect, to never let this woman out of his sight. But she was right. The sheriff was their only chance at ending this properly, at making sure Silas faced justice, instead of just a bullet in a lonely ranch house. There's rope in the barn, he said. Tie his hands and feet. Don't take your eyes off him. And if he tries anything at all, you put a bullet in him. You understand? I understand. Ezra turned to go, then stopped. He looked back at Clara, at this woman who'd stumbled into his life with 4 starving children and a dead husband's memory. This woman who'd grabbed his boot and refused to let go. This woman who'd called him dead-eyed and cold-hearted and then looked at him like he was worth something anyway. I'm coming back, he said. You better. I mean it. Whatever happens, I'm coming back. Clara's lips trembled. For just a second, her fierce mask slipped, and he saw the terrified widow underneath. Ezra. I know. He crossed back to her, cupped her face in his hands. I know, but I need you to believe me. Can you do that? She nodded. He kissed her forehead, brief, gentle, a promise, then turned and walked out the door. Clara watched him go, her heart hammering against her ribs. Samuel squirmed in her arms, reaching toward Ezra's retreating figure. Mr. Ezra come back? He'll come back, Clara said. He promised. And for the first time in 3 weeks, she found herself believing in a promise again. The next 2 hours were the longest of Clara's life. She tied Silas with the rope Ezra had mentioned, her hands trembling as she wrapped it around his wrists and ankles. He woke up halfway through, and the look he gave her made her skin crawl. Well, well, he said, his voice rough from the blow to his throat. The widow's in charge now. How the tables turn. Shut up. Make me.
Clara picked up the pistol and pressed it against his kneecap.
I could shoot you here. You wouldn't die, but you'd never walk right again. Would you like that? Silas's eyes narrowed. You ain't got the... She cocked the hammer. All right. He forced a laugh. I'll be quiet. For now. But his eyes never left her, never stopped calculating. And Clara knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that he was waiting for his chance. She checked on the children every 15 minutes. Ellie had taken charge of the younger ones, keeping them in the cellar with games and songs and stories. The girl was trying so hard to be brave, but Clara could see the fear in her eyes. Is the bad man going away? Hannah asked through the cellar door. Soon, baby. Real soon. Where's Mr. Ezra? He went to get help. Will he come back? Clara swallowed hard. Yes, he'll come back. But as the minutes crawled by and the sun moved across the sky, doubt began to creep in. What if something had happened? What if there were more of Silas's men on the road? What if Ezra got to town and decided it wasn't worth the trouble, that he'd done enough for a stranger and her children? He ain't coming back, Silas said from the floor, as if reading her thoughts. You know that, right? He's halfway to Mexico by now, laughing at the stupid widow who believed his pretty words. I said shut up. You think you're special to him? You think you're the first stray he's taken in? Silas laughed. Men like Ezra Cade don't change. They don't save people. They just delay the inevitable. You don't know anything about him. I know plenty. I know he let his wife die. Did he tell you that part? She was bleeding out after the baby came wrong, and he just stood there. Couldn't do nothing. Watched her slip away while he held her hand and cried. Clara's stomach turned. It's exactly what happened. I heard the story from a man who was there. Ezra Cade, the hero of Shiloh, couldn't save his own wife and child, so he crawled into this hole and waited to die. Silas's grin was vicious. And now you're pinning all your hopes on him? That man couldn't save a dog from drowning. He saved me. Did he? Or did he just delay your death a few days? Clara raised the pistol and pressed it against his forehead. One more word, she said quietly. Just one more, and I'll prove you wrong about what I'm willing to do. Silas fell silent, but his eyes were still laughing. The sound of hoofbeats made Clara's heart leap into her throat. She ran to the window, pistol ready, expecting the worst. But it wasn't Silas's men. It was Ezra. And behind him rode 4 other men, one wearing a sheriff's star. Clara's legs went weak with relief. She had to grab the windowsill to keep from falling, her whole body suddenly shaking with emotions she'd been holding back for hours. He came back. He actually came back. The door burst open, and Ezra strode in, his eyes immediately finding her. You all right? I'm all right. The children? In the cellar, safe. His shoulders sagged with relief. Then his gaze moved to Silas, still trussed on the floor, and his face hardened. Sheriff Holbrook, he said without looking away. This is Silas Dunn. Wanted for murder, robbery, and assault in 3 territories. The woman here can testify to his crimes. Soaking the bodies in my yard. The sheriff, a graying man with hard eyes and a harder jaw, stepped forward and looked down at Silas. Well, well, Silas Dunn. We've been looking for you a long time. Sheriff? Silas's voice was smooth, charming despite his position. This is all a misunderstanding. These people attacked me and my men. We were just, save it for the judge. Holbrook gestured to his deputies. Get him up. We got a cell waiting. As the deputies hauled Silas to his feet, he caught Clara's eye. The charm dropped away, and what remained was pure malice. This ain't over, he said quietly. You hear me? This ain't over. Yes, it is, Ezra said. He stepped between Silas and Clara, blocking the outlaw's view. It ended the moment you rode onto my land. Now you're going to hang, and my only regret is that I won't be the one pulling the lever. Silas laughed as they dragged him out. You're soft, Cade. Always were. That's why you couldn't save your wife. That's why you can't save this one. You ain't got the stomach for what needs doing. The door closed behind him, cutting off his voice. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. It was over. It was finally over. Ezra turned to her, and all the hardness drained from his face. He looked exhausted, relieved, and something else. Something that made Clara's heart skip. You did good, he said quietly. I was terrified. That's what doing good looks like sometimes. Clara wanted to laugh, wanted to cry, wanted to throw herself into his arms and never let go. Instead, she said, the children need to know it's safe. Then let's tell them. They walked to the cellar together. When Clara opened the door, 4 small faces looked up at her, frightened, hopeful, uncertain. It's over, she said. The bad men are gone. Ellie was the first one out, throwing herself at her mother with a sob. The twins followed, clinging to Clara's legs, and Samuel toddled past all of them and raised his arms toward Ezra. Up, he demanded. Up, Mr. Ezra. Ezra hesitated. Pick him up, Clara said softly. He needs you. Ezra bent down and lifted Samuel into his arms. The boy immediately snuggled against his chest, one thumb in his mouth, his eyes already drooping.
"Tired," Samuel mumbled. "I know, little man. I know."
Clara watched them, this broken man holding her son like he was something precious, and felt the last of her walls begin to crumble. Maybe Silas was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something worth fighting for. The week that followed should have been peaceful. Sheriff Holbrook had taken Silas Dunn to the county jail, promising a trial within the month. The bodies had been buried, the broken windows had been boarded up, and for 7 precious days, Clara allowed herself to believe that the nightmare was truly over. She was wrong. It started with small things. A horse gone missing from the barn, tracks in the dust that didn't belong to any of them. The feeling of being watched that crept up Clara's spine whenever she stepped outside. "You're imagining things," she told herself. "Silas is locked up. His men are dead or scattered. There's nothing to fear." But the fear wouldn't leave. On the 8th morning, Ezra found a note nailed to the barn door. He didn't show it to Clara right away. He read it 3 times, his face going pale, then gray, then hard as stone. Only when she caught him burning it in the fireplace did she demand to know what it said. "Nothing important." "Ezra, I said it's nothing. And I say you're lying." Clara stepped between him and the flames. "What did that note say?" His jaw worked. For a moment, she thought he'd push past her, refuse to answer, shut her out the way he'd been shut inside himself for 3 years. Then his shoulders sagged. It said, "We're coming for what's ours, the woman and the brats. You can die with them or step aside. Your choice." Clara's blood turned to ice. "Silas's men?" "Has to be. The ones who weren't here that day. The ones who got away." "How many?" "I don't know. Could be 2, could be 10. Ezra's hands clenched into fists. "I should have hunted them down. Should have tracked every last one of them instead of trusting the sheriff to handle it." "You couldn't have known." "I did know." His voice cracked. "I knew Silas. I knew he'd have contingencies. I just wanted to believe it was over. I wanted—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I wanted to stop fighting. Just for a little while." Clara reached for him, but he pulled away. "I'm riding into town," he said. "Gonna talk to Holbrook, see if Silas has been talking to anyone from his cell. You stay here. Keep the children inside." "Ezra, wait!" But he was already gone. Clara spent the day in a state of controlled panic. She checked every window, every door, every possible point of entry. She made the children stay in the main room where she could see them, inventing games to keep them occupied while her eyes kept darting to the horizon. "Mama, why are you scared?" Ellie asked. "I'm not scared, baby." "Yes, you are. You got that look. The same look you had when Daddy—" Clara knelt down and took her daughter's hands. "Listen to me. Whatever happens, I need you to be brave. Can you do that? Can you be my brave girl?" Ellie's chin trembled, but she nodded. "Good. Now here's what I need you to do. If anything bad happens, anything at all, I want you to take your brothers and sisters and hide. You remember the place Mr. Ezra showed you? The one by the creek?" "The hollow tree?" "That's the one. You go there and you don't come out until someone you trust comes to find you. You understand?" "But Mama—" "Promise me, Ellie." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "I promise." Clara hugged her tight, memorizing the feel of her daughter in her arms, the smell of her hair, the sound of her heartbeat. If the worst happened, this might be the last time. Ezra returned at sunset with news that turned Clara's fear into terror. "Silas is gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean someone broke him out. Last night while the deputy was making rounds. They killed Holbrook's man, unlocked the cell, and rode off before anyone knew what happened. Clara's knees buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. "The sheriff's forming a posse," Ezra continued, his voice flat and hard. "They'll ride out at first light. But it won't matter. Silas knows this country better than any of them. By the time they pick up his trail, he'll be halfway to Mexico. Or halfway here." Ezra's silence was answer enough. "What do we do?" Clara whispered. "We leave. Tonight. Pack what you can carry, and we ride for Fort Laramie. There's an army garrison there. Silas won't risk attacking a military installation." "And then what? We hide behind soldiers for the rest of our lives?" "If that's what it takes to keep you and those children alive, then yes." Clara looked at him. Really looked. She saw the fear he was trying to hide. The guilt. The desperate need to protect something, someone, after failing so completely before. "You blamed yourself," she said quietly. "For your wife. For your son." Ezra flinched like she'd struck him. "Silas told me. He said you couldn't save them, that you just watched while she—" "Don't." The word came out broken. "Please, Clara, don't. I ain't saying it to hurt you. I'm saying it because I understand now. I understand why you were so ready to let us in that first night. Why you looked at my children like they were ghosts. They're not ghosts. They're real. They're alive. And I'm going to keep them that way." "But you can't keep running from what happened. You can't keep trying to save strangers because you couldn't save the people you loved." Ezra's hands were shaking. "What do you want from me?" Clara stepped closer, close enough to touch him, close enough to see the tears he was fighting. "I want you to stop punishing yourself. I want you to believe you deserve to be happy again. I want—" Her voice caught. "I want you to stop pushing me away every time I get too close. Clara, I know it's only been a few weeks. I know we're in danger. I know this is the worst possible time to say any of this." She took a shaky breath. "But I'm tired of waiting for the right time." Thomas waited. He waited until we had money saved. Waited until the wagon was ready. Waited until everything was perfect. And now he's dead, and I'm standing here with 4 children and a heart that's too scared to feel anything. She grabbed the front of his shirt. "I don't want to be scared anymore, Ezra. I don't want to spend whatever time I have left wondering what might have been. So I'm asking you, right now, tonight, with God knows what coming for us, I'm asking you to stop hiding." Ezra stared at her. His walls were crumbling. She could see it. Years of grief and guilt and isolation, all of it cracking under the weight of her words. "I can't lose you," he said hoarsely. "I can't go through that again. Watching someone He stopped. Couldn't say it. "Someone you what?" "Someone I love die in front of me." The word hung between them. Love. Such a small word for such an enormous thing. "Then don't let me die," Clara said. "Fight for me. Fight for them. But don't you dare push me away because you're afraid of what might happen." Ezra pulled her into his arms. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tender. It was desperate and fierce and hungry. The embrace of 2 people who'd been starving for connection and finally found something real to hold on to. "I love you," he said into her hair. "God help me. I love you. All of you. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But you grabbed my boot that first night, and you wouldn't let go, and now I can't. I can't." "Then stop trying to let go." She kissed him. It was their first real kiss. Not the brief press of lips he'd given her forehead. Not the careful, respectful distance they'd maintained. This was fire and need, and a promise neither of them was sure they could keep. When they finally broke apart, both were trembling. "We should leave," Clara said. "We should." "Right now." "Yes." Neither of them moved.
Mama? They sprang apart. Ellie stood in the doorway, her face white. Mama, there's men outside, lots of men, and they got torches.
Ezra was at the window in 3 strides. 6 riders sat at the edge of his property, their faces lit by flickering flames. And in front of them, mounted on a black horse like death itself, sat Silas Dunn. "Cade," Silas's voice carried through the night. "You and me got unfinished business." "Take the children to the cellar," Ezra said without turning. "Now." "Ezra! Clara! Now!" She grabbed Ellie's hand and ran. The twins were already awake, sitting up in bed with wide, frightened eyes. Clara scooped up Samuel, who was still half asleep, and herded all 4 children toward the cellar.
Mama, what's happening? Jacob whispered. Bad men, baby. But Mr. Ezra's going to protect us. You just stay quiet, okay? You stay quiet and don't come out no matter what you hear.
She got them into the cellar, closed the heavy door above them, and grabbed the rifle Ezra had left loaded by the kitchen table. When she returned to the main room, Ezra was pulling on his gun belt. "I told you to stay with the children."
They're safe, hidden, and I ain't letting you face 6 men alone.
"Clara,
Don't.
she checked the rifle the way he'd taught her.
I already lost one husband to Silas Dunn. I ain't losing you, too.
Ezra looked at her, this woman with fire in her eyes and a rifle in her hands, and something in his chest broke and healed all at once. "Stay behind me," he said, "and if I go down, you take that rifle and you shoot anyone who comes through that door."
You ain't going down.
"Clara."
You ain't going down, you hear me? I won't allow it.
He almost smiled. "Yes, ma'am." They moved to the door together. Silas was waiting, his grin visible even in the darkness.
There he is, the hero of Shiloh, come to face the music.
Silas spread his arms wide.
And he brought the widow. How romantic.
"What do you want, Silas?" "What do I want?" Silas laughed. "I want what's owed to me. I want that woman who shot one of my best men. I want those brats who can identify my face. And I want you dead, Cade. Same as I've wanted since you gave me this scar. Then come take it." Silas's grin faded. "Oh, I will. But first, let's make this interesting." He gestured to one of his men, who dismounted and pulled someone, from behind his horse. Clara's heart stopped. It was Ellie. "No!" Clara lunged forward, but Ezra grabbed her arm. "Let me go! That's my daughter!" "If you run out there, they'll shoot you before you get 3 steps."
I don't care, Ellie!
The girl was crying, struggling against the man who held her.
Mama, I'm sorry. He found the tree. He knew about the tree.
"Seems your hiding spot wasn't quite as secret as you thought," Silas said. He pulled his pistol and pressed it against Ellie's temple. "Now here's how this is going to work. The widow comes out, alone, and I let the girl go. Simple trade." "Don't do it," Ezra said. "He's lying. He'll kill you both." "Maybe, but if I don't, he'll kill Ellie for sure." "Clara, she's my daughter, Ezra, my baby. I ain't got a choice." She pulled away from him and walked toward the door.
Clara, don't, please.
She stopped, looked back. In the dim light, she could see tears on his face.
Take care of them, she said. The others. Whatever happens to me, you take care of them.
Don't ask me to do that.
I ain't asking. I'm telling.
She tried to smile, but it broke halfway through.
I love you, Ezra Cade. I should have said it sooner. I should have said a lot of things sooner.
She opened the door.
Mama, no!
Ellie screamed. Clara walked into the night. Silas watched her come with that predator's grin, the pistol never leaving Ellie's head. "Smart woman," he said when she was close enough to touch. "Smarter than your husband, anyway. He thought he could fight. You know better. Let her go." In a minute. First, I want you to kneel. Clara's jaw tightened. Kneel, Silas repeated. Show these men what happens to people who cross me. Show your daughter what her mother really is, a coward who begs for mercy.
Mama, don't!
But Clara knelt. The dirt was hard and cold beneath her knees. She could feel the eyes of Silas's men on her, hungry and cruel. Could hear Ellie crying. Could sense Ezra somewhere behind her, probably fighting every instinct to charge in with guns blazing. That's better. Silas holstered his pistol and drew a knife instead. Now, I could kill you quick. One cut and it's over. But that wouldn't be nearly as satisfying as what I got planned. He grabbed Clara's hair and yanked her head back. Your husband screamed, he whispered.
Did you know that? Right at the end, when he realized he was dying, he screamed like a pig. I wonder if you'll do the same.
Clara spat in his face. Silas recoiled, wiping the spit from his eye. His face twisted with rage. You'll pay for that. You'll pay for... The shot came from nowhere. One of Silas's men toppled from his horse, a red bloom spreading across his chest. Ambush! Someone shouted. Then chaos. More shots, coming from multiple directions. Silas's men scrambled for cover, returning fire at enemies they couldn't see. In the confusion, the man holding Ellie loosened his grip. Clara didn't think, she just moved. She tackled her daughter, covering Ellie's body with her own as bullets flew overhead. They hit the ground hard, rolled, and Clara pulled them both behind a water trough.
Stay down, baby. Stay down. Mama, I'm scared. I know. Just stay down.
Through the smoke and muzzle flashes, Clara saw Ezra burst from the house, rifle blazing. He dropped one man, then another, moving with the precision of someone who'd spent years learning how to kill. But Silas was already mounting his horse. This ain't over, Cade, he screamed. You hear me? This ain't... A final shot rang out. Silas jerked in the saddle. The knife fell from his hand. He looked down at his chest, at the red stains spreading there. And then he looked up at Clara. She was standing now, Ezra's pistol in her hands. The pistol she'd grabbed from the dirt without even thinking. The pistol she'd aimed and fired without hesitation. Yes, it is, she said. Silas Dunn fell from his horse and didn't get up. The remaining outlaws scattered, riving into the darkness as more shots pursued them. Within minutes, it was over. The only sounds the crackling of dropped torches and the groans of dying men. Sheriff Holbrook emerged from the tree line, smoking rifle in hand. You all right? He called. Ezra lowered his weapon. You cut it close. Had to wait for them to bunch up. Couldn't risk hitting the girl. Holbrook looked at Silas's body, then at Clara. That was one hell of a shot, ma'am. Clara didn't answer. She was on her knees, holding Ellie, both of them shaking so hard they could barely breathe.
Mama.
Ellie's voice was small, broken.
Mama, you killed him. I know, baby. You killed the bad man. I had to. He was going to hurt you. I know.
Ellie pulled back and looked at her mother with something Clara had never seen before. Not fear, not horror. Respect.
You saved me. Always, baby. I'll always save you.
Ezra reached them and dropped to his knees beside Clara. His hands were still shaking from the fight, but his touch was gentle as he pulled them both close. It's over, he said. Really over this time. Clara wanted to believe him, wanted to collapse into his arms and sleep for a week, wanted to forget that she'd just killed a man and felt nothing but relief. But there were still 3 children in that cellar, terrified and alone. The others, she said. We need to... I'll get them. Ezra kissed her forehead. You stay here with Ellie. I'll bring them out. He was back in minutes, carrying Samuel on one hip while the twins clung to his legs. The moment they saw Clara, they ran. 4 children, all alive, all safe. Clara held them while they cried, while they asked questions she couldn't answer, while the sheriff and his men cleaned up the carnage in Ezra's yard. And when the sun finally rose over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Clara Whitmore looked at the man who'd opened his door to a desperate stranger and felt something she'd thought she'd never feel again. Hope. Real, genuine hope.
"What happens now?" she asked.
Ezra took her hand. "Now, we live." 3 days after Silas Dunn died, Clara woke up screaming. It was the same dream, the same moment, her finger on the trigger, the kickback of the pistol, the look in Silas's eyes when he realized it was over. She'd killed a man. She'd pointed a gun at another human being and ended his life. And no matter how many times she told herself he deserved it, no matter how many times she remembered what he'd done to Thomas, what he'd tried to do to Ellie, she couldn't escape the weight of it. "Clara," Ezra's voice came through the darkness. "Clara, you're safe. You're here with me." She felt his hand on her shoulder, gentle and warm, and she wanted to lean into it, wanted to let him comfort her, the way he'd been trying to do since that night. Instead, she pulled away. "I'm fine." "You ain't fine. You've been having these nightmares every night." "I said I'm fine." She got up, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, and moved to the window. Outside, the first light of dawn was just beginning to touch the horizon. Another day. Another chance to pretend everything was normal. Ezra sat up in bed. They'd been sharing a room since the attack. Not sharing a bed, not like that, but sleeping in the same space because Clara couldn't bear to be alone in the dark, and Ezra couldn't bear to let her out of his sight. "Talk to me," he said. "Ain't nothing to talk about." "Clara." "What do you want me to say?" She spun to face him, tears she'd been holding back finally breaking free. "That I feel guilty? That I can't close my eyes without seeing his face? That every time I look at my children, I wonder what kind of monster they must think their mama is?" "You ain't a monster." "I killed a man, Ezra." "A man who murdered your husband. A man who is going to murder you and your daughter. A man who would have killed all of us if you hadn't—" "I know what he was. I know what he did. But that don't change the fact that I pulled that trigger and watched him die and felt. She couldn't finish. Ezra crossed the room and took her hands in his. "Felt what?" "Nothing," her voice cracked. "I felt nothing, just relief, just glad he was dead." "What kind of person feels glad about killing someone?" "The kind of person who was protecting her children. The kind of person who's been through hell and came out the other side fighting." He cupped her face in his hands. "You ain't a monster, Clara. You're a mother. And mothers do terrible things to keep their babies safe. That ain't evil. That's love." Clara broke. She collapsed against his chest, sobbing, and Ezra held her while she finally let out all the grief and guilt and fear she'd been choking down. He didn't try to fix it, didn't offer empty words, just held her and let her cry until there was nothing left. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red and swollen, but something had shifted. Something had loosened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. I've been pushing you away. Every time you try to get close, I know. It's okay." "It ain't okay. You've been nothing but good to me and my children, and I keep—" Ezra kissed her. It was soft, tender, nothing like the desperate, hungry kiss they'd shared before the attack. This was something else. Something that said, "I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. Take all the time you need." When they broke apart, Clara let out a shaky breath. "I don't deserve you." "Maybe not." A hint of a smile touched his lips. But you're stuck with me anyway. The children adapted faster than Clara expected. Samuel, too young to understand what had happened, simply accepted that Mr. Ezra was part of their lives now. He followed the man everywhere, helping with chores, asking endless questions, falling asleep in his arms every night. The twins were quieter, more watchful. But slowly, day by day, they began to open up. Hannah started bringing Ezra wildflowers from the field. Jacob asked him to teach him how to ride. Ellie was the hardest. She'd seen too much, understood too much. And no matter how many times Clara tried to talk to her, tried to explain, the girl kept her distance. "She hates me," Clara told Ezra one evening, watching Ellie sit alone by the creek. "She don't hate you. She won't look at me, won't talk to me. Every time I try to—" "She's scared, Clara, not of you, of losing you." Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" "She saw you walk out to face Silas, saw you kneel in the dirt with a gun to your head, saw you willing to die for her." Ezra's voice was gentle. "That's a lot for a girl her age to carry. She ain't pushing you away because she hates you. She's pushing you away because she loves you too much and don't know what to do with it." Clara looked at her daughter, this brave, broken girl who'd walked barefoot for days to keep her family alive, and felt her heart crack open. "What do I do?" "Give her time, and when she's ready, be there." That night, Clara woke to the sound of crying, not her own this time, someone else. She followed the sound to the children's room and found Ellie curled up in the corner, knees to her chest, sobbing into her hands. "Baby?" Ellie's head snapped up. "Mama, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." Clara knelt beside her daughter. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, I'm fine." "Ellie," the girl's face crumpled. "I keep seeing it. The bad man. The gun against my head. I keep thinking what would have happened if you didn't. If Mr. Ezra didn't—" She couldn't finish. Clara pulled her close. "Come here, baby. Come here." Ellie clung to her like she was drowning. "I was so scared, Mama. I tried to be brave like you said, but I couldn't. I led them right to the hiding spot. I almost got us all killed." "No, baby, no. None of that was your fault." "But Listen to me." Clara pulled back and took Ellie's face in her hands. "You are the bravest girl I have ever known. You walked for 12 days on bloody feet to keep your brother and sisters going. You held this family together when I couldn't. You are not weak, Ellie Whitmore. You are strong. Stronger than anyone I've ever met." Tears streamed down Ellie's cheeks. "I don't feel strong." "Nobody does, baby. That's the secret. Everybody's scared. Everybody feels like they ain't enough. But you keep going anyway. That's what makes you brave." Ellie threw her arms around Clara's neck. "I love you, Mama." "I love you too, baby. More than anything in this world." They sat there in the darkness, mother and daughter, holding on to each other until the trembling stopped. And when Clara finally carried Ellie back to bed and tucked her in, she saw something she hadn't seen in weeks. Ellie smiled. 2 weeks after Silas's death, the town came calling. Clara was in the kitchen when she heard the horses, 4 of them, approaching from the main road. Her hand immediately went to the rifle by the door. "Easy." Ezra appeared beside her. "It's just the preacher and some of the townswomen. They've been meaning to come by." "Why?" "To welcome you proper, I reckon. Check on the widow and her children." He paused. "And probably to see if the rumors are true." "What rumors?" Ezra's jaw tightened. "That we've been living in sin." Clara's stomach dropped. "We ain't. I know that. You know that. But folks talk, Clara. A man and a woman under the same roof with no marriage between them. It don't matter what the truth is. It matters what people think.
Then let them think what they want.
It ain't that simple. You got children. They gotta grow up in this community, go to school, make friends. If the town decides you're a fallen woman... He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Clara opened the door. The preacher was a thin man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. The three women with him were less friendly, their faces tight with disapproval as they took in Clara's rumpled dress and uncombed hair. "Mrs. Whitmore?" The preacher removed his hat. "I'm Reverend Mills. We came to offer our condolences on your loss and our welcome to the community." "That's kind of you. May we come in?" Clara hesitated. She could feel the women's eyes on her, cataloging every detail, preparing their gossip for the ride home. Of course. She served coffee and what little food they had, while the preacher made small talk and the women asked pointed questions. Where was she from? How long had she been staying with Mr. Cade? Were there any plans for more permanent arrangements? Mrs. Whitmore, the oldest of the women, Mrs. Garrett, wife of the general store owner, leaned forward. "I feel I must speak plainly. There's been talk." "Talk?" "About your situation here. A widow with 4 children, living under the roof of an unmarried man. Surely you can understand how that might appear." Clara's hands tightened on her coffee cup. "I can understand how small-minded people might twist an act of Christian charity into something shameful, if that's what you mean." Mrs. Garrett's face reddened. "I beg your pardon. My children were starving. We had nowhere to go. Mr. Cade took us in out of kindness, nothing more. If that's cause for scandal in your eyes, then perhaps you should examine your own hearts before passing judgment on mine." Silence fell over the room. The preacher cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitmore, I don't think Mrs. Garrett meant any offense. With respect, Reverend, I think she meant exactly that." Clara stood. "Thank you for your visit. I'm sure you have other calls to make." The women filed out, their faces rigid with offense. But the preacher lingered, his expression thoughtful. "Mrs. Whitmore, a word?" Clara nodded. "I apologize for my companions. They mean well, but sometimes Christian charity gets lost in Christian propriety." He glanced toward the door where Ezra stood watching. "For what it's worth, I've known Ezra Cade for 10 years. He's a good man, one of the best I've met. If he chose to help you, he had good reason." "Thank you, Reverend. But Mrs. Garrett isn't wrong about the practical concerns. A woman alone with children needs protection, legal protection. A husband provides that in ways a benefactor cannot." Clara's cheeks flushed. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm suggesting nothing," the preacher smiled gently. "I'm merely observing that sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways, and sometimes those ways include bringing 2 broken souls together so they can help each other heal." He tipped his hat and left. Clara found Ezra on the porch, his face unreadable. "You heard?" "I heard. They think I'm that we're—" "I know what they think." Clara sat down beside him, suddenly exhausted. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. Now they'll never accept us." "They'll come around, once they see what kind of person you really are." "And if they don't?" Ezra was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and worn. A ring. "This was my mother's," he said quietly. "She gave it to me before she died. Made me promise to only give it to someone worthy of it." Clara's breath caught. "Ezra, I ain't asking you to marry me because of what those women think. I ain't asking you to save your reputation or protect your children from gossip." He turned to face her, and his eyes held everything he'd been too afraid to say.
I'm asking you because I love you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Because when I look at those children, I see a family I never thought I'd have again." Clara's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "I know it's soon. I know you're still grieving Thomas. I know you got every reason to say no." He pressed the ring into her palm. "But I'm asking anyway. Clara Whitmore, will you marry me?" She looked at the ring, looked at this man who'd saved her life, who'd held her while she cried, who'd loved her children like they were his own. "Yes." The word came out before she could stop it. Ezra's face transformed. "Yes?" "Yes, you fool." She was laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I'll marry you." He swept her into his arms, spinning her around while she shrieked with surprised joy. When he finally set her down, he kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. "Mama?" They broke apart. All 4 children stood in the doorway, their eyes wide. "Are you and Mr. Ezra getting married?" Ellie asked. Clara looked at Ezra, then back at her daughter. "Would that be okay with you?" Ellie's face broke into the biggest smile Clara had seen since before Thomas died. "Does that mean he's going to be our daddy now?" Ezra knelt down so he was eye level with her. "Only if you want me to be. I ain't trying to replace your father. He was a good man, and he loved you very much. But if you'll have me, I'd be honored to help take care of you. All of you." Ellie threw her arms around his neck. "I want that," she said. "I want that a lot." Samuel, not wanting to be left out, toddled over and grabbed Ezra's leg. "Daddy?" The word hit Ezra like a physical blow. Clara saw tears spring to his eyes, the first tears she'd ever seen him shed. "Yeah, little man." His voice was rough with emotion. "Yeah, I'm gonna be your daddy." The twins joined the pile, and suddenly they were all tangled together, a messy, beautiful knot of arms and tears and laughter. Clara watched them, her heart so full it hurt. This was her family. Not the one she'd planned, not the one she'd lost, but the one she'd found, against all odds, in the ashes of everything that had gone wrong. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara and Ezra sat on the porch watching the stars. "You sure about this?" Ezra asked. "Marrying a broken-down rancher with too much past and not enough future?" "I'm sure. Because once we do this, there's no going back. You're stuck with me forever." Clara took his hand. "Promise?" He kissed her palm. "Promise." "Then I reckon I can live with that." They sat in comfortable silence, the night sounds of the ranch wrapping around them like a blanket. "What was Thomas like?" Ezra asked suddenly. "If you don't mind talking about him." Clara smiled, surprised to find that it didn't hurt as much as she'd expected. "He was gentle, kind, terrible at cards, but wouldn't admit it. He sang to the children every night, same 3 songs over and over until they fell asleep." "Sounds like a good man." "He was. The best man I'd ever known." She paused. "Until I met you." Ezra's hand tightened on hers. "Clara." "I mean it. Thomas was my first love. He'll always be part of me. But you—" She turned to face him. "You're my second chance. My miracle. The man who opened his door when everyone else turned us away. I almost didn't. Almost closed that door and let you keep walking. But you didn't." "No." He touched her face. "I didn't." "Why? Really? After everything you'd been through, why did you let us in?" Ezra was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Because Ellie grabbed my boot. Because she looked up at me with those big eyes and called me sir, like I was somebody worth respecting. Because I remembered what it felt like to have a child need me, and I couldn't walk away from that. Not again." Clara felt tears slip down her cheeks. "We needed you." "And I needed you,"
I just didn't know it yet. The wedding was set for the following Sunday. Nothing fancy, just the preacher, the children, and a few neighbors who'd come around once they heard Clara's story. Mrs. Garrett even brought a pie, her face stiff with embarrassment as she mumbled something about misjudging the situation. Clara wore a dress Rebecca Holbrook, the sheriff's wife, had lent her. It was blue, the color of summer sky, and when Ellie saw her in it, she started to cry.
You look beautiful, Mama. Thank you, baby. Daddy would have wanted this. He would have wanted you to be happy.
Clara pulled her daughter close. I know he would. The ceremony was simple. They stood in the yard, the children clustered around them, and repeated the vows that would bind them together. When the preacher asked if anyone objected, Samuel shouted, "No!" so loudly that everyone laughed. "By the power vested in me," the preacher said, "I now pronounce you man and wife. Mr. Cade, you may kiss your bride." Ezra cupped Clara's face in his hands and kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. The children cheered. The neighbors applauded. And Clara Cade, no longer Whitmore, no longer alone, felt the last broken pieces of her heart finally click into place. That night, after the celebration had ended and the neighbors had gone home, Ezra carried Clara over the threshold of their bedroom. "This is ridiculous," she laughed. "I can walk." "It's tradition. It's silly. It's our wedding night. Let me be silly." He set her down gently, and they stood facing each other in the candlelight. So much had happened between that first desperate knock and this moment. So much pain, so much fear, so much healing. "I love you, Mrs. Cade," Ezra said. "I love you too, Mr. Cade." He kissed her, and this time there was nothing holding them back. No fear, no guilt, no ghosts. Just two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to walk into the light together. In the next room, Clara could hear the children settling in for sleep. Samuel's babbling, the twins' whispered conversation, Ellie humming the same lullaby Thomas used to sing. Her family, her home, her second chance. And this time, she was going to hold on tight. The first year of their marriage was the hardest. Not because of Silas. He was dead and buried, his gang scattered to the winds. Not because of the town. Even Mrs. Garrett had come around eventually, bringing casseroles and unsolicited advice like some kind of peace offering. The hardest part was learning to be a family. Clara woke most mornings before dawn, habit from years of struggle refusing to let her rest. She'd lie there in the darkness, listening to Ezra breathe beside her, and wonder when the other shoe would drop. When this impossible happiness would shatter, like everything else she'd ever held dear. "You're thinking too loud," Ezra mumbled one morning, pulling her closer. "I can hear it from here." "Sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just tell me what's wrong." Clara hesitated. They'd been married 3 months. 3 months of building something real, something lasting. But the fear never quite went away. "I keep waiting," she admitted. "Waiting for what?" "For something bad to happen. For this to end." Ezra propped himself up on one elbow. "Clara, look at me." She turned to face him. "This ain't ending. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You understand? I made a vow. I meant it." "I know you did. You just spent so many years expecting the worst that you don't know how to expect good things anymore." He touched her face. "I get it. I spent 3 years waiting to die because I couldn't imagine anything else. But then you knocked on my door. And you almost didn't answer." "Almost. But I did. And everything changed." He kissed her forehead. "So here's what's going to happen. Every morning you wake up scared, you tell me. And every morning, I'll remind you that this is real. This is forever. Deal? Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Deal. The children adapted in their own ways. Samuel called Ezra Daddy without hesitation, as if the man had always been there. He followed Ezra everywhere, to the barn, to the fields, even to the outhouse once, which had resulted in Ezra having to explain certain things he'd never expected to explain to a 2-year-old. He asked me why I stand up, Ezra told Clara that night, his face red. Clara laughed so hard she cried. The twins were slower to warm up. They'd been closest to Thomas, old enough to remember him clearly, and accepting another man in his place felt like betrayal. "He's not Daddy," Jacob said one evening when Clara asked him to help Ezra with the horses. "I know he's not, baby." "Then why do we have to pretend he is?" Clara knelt down to her son's level. "Nobody's asking you to pretend anything. Your daddy was your daddy. He always will be. Ezra isn't trying to replace him." "Then what is he?" "He's—" Clara paused, searching for the right words. "He's someone new. Someone who wants to love you and take care of you. It's okay to let him do that. It doesn't mean you love Daddy any less." Jacob's lip trembled. "I miss him, Mama." "I know, baby. I miss him too." "Do you still love him?" "Always. I'll always love your daddy." "But you love Mr. Ezra too?" "Yes." Jacob frowned, working through the logic. "Can you love 2 people at the same time?" "You can love as many people as your heart has room for, and hearts are bigger than you think." It took time, but eventually Jacob started calling Ezra Pa. Not Daddy, that title belonged to Thomas alone, but something new, something that was just theirs. Hannah followed her brother's lead, as she always did. Ellie was the most complicated. She accepted Ezra intellectually. She knew he'd saved their lives, knew he loved her mother, knew he was a good man. But there was a wall between them that neither seemed able to breach. "She won't talk to me," Ezra confided to Clara one night. "She's polite, respectful, but it's like talking to a stranger. Give her time." It's been 6 months. Some wounds take longer to heal. But Clara was worried too. Ellie was 12 now, nearly a woman, at least by frontier standards. She needed a father figure, especially in a world where men made all the rules. And if she couldn't learn to trust Ezra... The breakthrough came on a summer afternoon, nearly a year after their wedding. Clara was inside with the younger children when she heard the scream. Ellie's scream. She ran. Ezra was already sprinting toward the creek, where Ellie had gone to fish. Clara followed, her heart pounding, every nightmare she'd ever had coming true all at once. She found them at the water's edge. Ellie was in Ezra's arms, sobbing hysterically, while a dead snake lay at their feet. A rattler, by the look of it, its head crushed by a rock. "What happened?" Clara dropped to her knees beside them. "Ellie, baby, what happened?" "It bit me." Ellie held up her hand, and Clara saw the twin puncture marks on her finger, already swelling and turning red. "We need to get her inside," Ezra said, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Now!" He carried her like she weighed nothing, his face set and determined. Clara ran ahead, clearing the table, grabbing clean cloths and the whiskey they kept for medicinal purposes. "Is she going to die?" Jacob asked, his eyes wide. "No, baby. She's going to be fine. Take your brother and sister outside. Now!" The next few hours were a blur. Ezra cut the wound and sucked out what venom he could, spitting it onto the floor without hesitation. Clara held Ellie still while she thrashed and screamed, the pain overwhelming her young body. "It hurts," Ellie sobbed. "Mama, it hurts so bad." "I know, baby, I know, but you gotta stay still." "Make it stop! Please make it stop!" Clara looked at Ezra, desperation in her eyes. His face was gray, his lips still stinging from the venom he'd extracted. She needs a doctor, he said. Town's 2 hours away. Then I'll make it in one. He was gone before Clara could respond. The wait was agony. Ellie's fever spiked. She drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes crying for her mother, sometimes crying for Thomas, sometimes crying for someone Clara didn't recognize. "Don't let him hurt me," she whimpered. "Please, Mama, don't let him hurt me." Clara's blood ran cold. "Who, baby? Who's hurting you?" The man with the scar." Silas. Even dead, he haunted her daughter's nightmares. "He can't hurt you anymore," Clara said, stroking Ellie's sweat-soaked hair. "He's gone, baby. He's gone forever." "Promise?" "Promise." Ellie's eyes fluttered open, briefly lucid. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know." "I don't want to die." "You ain't gonna die." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do," Clara squeezed her hand. "Because you're strong. Stronger than anyone I've ever known. You walked for 12 days on bleeding feet. You survived Silas Dunn. You're going to survive this too." Ellie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mama." "For what?" "For being difficult. For not letting Pa in." Clara's heart clenched. "Baby, you don't have to." "I was scared. Scared that if I loved him, something bad would happen. Like with Daddy. Like loving people means losing them." "Oh, sweetheart." "But he came for me. When I screamed, he came running. He didn't even think about it. He came. That's what fathers do." Ellie's lips trembled. "Is that what he is? My father?" "Only if you want him to be." I think maybe I do." Ezra burst through the door with a doctor right behind him. The man, older, competent, no nonsense, went straight to work, examining Ellie, administering treatments, asking Clara questions about the snake and the timing of the bite. "She's lucky," he said finally. "Another hour without treatment and we'd be having a different conversation. But she's going to pull through." Clara collapsed. She didn't mean to, didn't plan to. But the relief was so overwhelming that her legs simply gave out. Ezra caught her before she hit the floor. "I gotcha," he said. "I gotcha." "Is she really going to be okay?" "Doctor says so." "You saved her." "We saved her. Both of us." Clara looked at her daughter, sleeping peacefully now, the fever already breaking. Then she looked at Ezra, this man who'd ridden hell-bent to town and back, who'd sucked venom from her child's wound without a second thought, who'd loved them all so fiercely and completely. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. She's my daughter too." Clara started crying then, and once she started, she couldn't stop. Ezra held her while she wept, his arms solid and warm and real. "I love you," she said. "God, I love you so much." "I love you too. All of you. Forever." Ellie recovered fully within a week. But something had changed. She started calling Ezra Pa without prompting. Started seeking him out for advice, for comfort, for the thousand small things daughters need from fathers. The wall between them didn't just crack, it crumbled entirely. "She asked me to teach her to shoot," Ezra told Clara one evening, still looking stunned. "What did you say?" "I said yes. What else was I going to say?" Clara smiled. "You're a good father, Ezra Cade." "I'm trying to be." "No, you are. Those children adore you." "They adore their mother. I'm just the fool who was smart enough to marry her." She kissed him then, long and deep, and when they broke apart, both were smiling. "I want another one," Clara said suddenly. Ezra blinked. "Another what?" "Another child.
Our child.
His face went through about 17 expressions in 3 seconds.
Clara, I know what happened with Martha. I know you're scared, but I'm not her, Ezra. And this time, you won't be alone.
What if something goes wrong?
Then we'll face it together.
Same as we've faced everything else. Clara, I ain't saying we have to decide tonight. I'm just saying I want you to think about it. Really think about it. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I never thought I'd have a family again. After Martha, after the baby, I thought that part of my life was over, and I'd made my peace with it. And now? Now I've got 4 children who call me Pa, and a wife who makes me believe in second chances. He took her hand. If you want another baby, we'll have another baby. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together. Clara's smile was radiant.
Really?
Really. Though I'm going to need a few more head of cattle if I'm feeding 7 mouths. She laughed and threw her arms around him.
I love you.
You better. You're stuck with me. 9 months later, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Thomas, after the man who'd brought them to Ezra's door, the man whose death had led to their life. Ellie was the first one to hold him after Clara.
He's so small,
she said, cradling her new brother with infinite care.
Was I ever this small?
Smaller, Clara said, exhausted but happy.
You were early. The doctor said you were the smallest baby he'd ever seen survive. And look at me now. Look at you now.
Ezra sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around Clara, the other around Ellie. The twins had fallen asleep in the corner, and Samuel was in the kitchen with the neighbor woman who'd come to help with the birth.
We did good,
Ezra said quietly.
We did good,
Clara agreed.
I mean it. Look at this family. Look at what we built.
Clara looked. 4 children from her first marriage, all thriving. A new baby in her arms. A husband who loved her fiercely and completely.
Sometimes I think about that night, she said. The night I knocked on your door.
What about it? What if you hadn't answered? What if you'd told us to leave? I almost did. I know, but you didn't. No. Ezra kissed her temple. I didn't.
Why? Really?
After everything you'd been through, why did you open that door? He was quiet for a moment. Because your daughter looked at me like I was the last hope she had left. Because I remembered what it felt like to need someone and have nobody there. He paused. Because sometimes, in the darkest moments, the universe sends you exactly what you need. I just had to be brave enough to let it in. Clara felt tears slip down her cheeks.
I'm glad you did.
So am I. Baby Thomas stirred in Ellie's arms, making a small sound that wasn't quite a cry.
I think he's hungry, Ellie said.
Clara took him back, settling him against her breast. The baby latched on immediately, content. He knows what he wants, Ezra observed. Wonder where he gets that from.
Definitely his mother,
Clara laughed. Definitely. 5 years passed. They were good years. Hard, sometimes. Ranching wasn't easy, and raising 5 children was even harder, but good. The kind of good Clara had stopped believing in during those dark days on the trail. Ellie grew into a young woman, beautiful and strong. She started courting a young rancher from the next county, a serious, hard-working boy named Daniel, who reminded Clara a little of Thomas. You sure about him? Ezra asked one evening, watching Daniel ride away after dinner.
I think so. He's kind, patient. He looks at her like she hung the moon.
He better. Otherwise I'll have words with him.
Ezra.
What? I'm her father. I'm allowed to threaten potential suitors. Clara laughed. You're terrible. You love me anyway.
God help me, I do.
Jacob and Hannah were 12 now, inseparable as ever. Jacob had inherited his father's talent for carpentry, spending hours in Ezra's workshop, building furniture and fixing things around the ranch. Hannah preferred books. She'd taught herself to read better than anyone in the family and devoured everything she could get her hands on. Samuel was 7, the spitting image of Thomas, but with Ezra's quiet steadiness. He followed his pa everywhere, learning everything Ezra could teach him about horses and cattle and the land. And little Thomas, Tommy they called him, was a terror. 4 years old and convinced he could do anything his older siblings could do. He'd already fallen off 2 horses, nearly drowned in the creek, and somehow managed to get stuck in a tree so high that Ezra had to build a ladder to get him down. "He's gonna kill me," Ezra said after the tree incident. "This boy's gonna give me a heart attack." "He's just adventurous." "He's reckless. Like his father." Ezra paused. "I ain't reckless. You charged into a canyon to scout Silas Dunn with nothing but Elias for backup." "That was different." "Uh-huh." "It was." Clara just smiled and kissed his cheek. The past didn't disappear entirely. Clara still had nightmares sometimes. Less frequently now, but they still came. Moments when she'd wake up gasping, reaching for a gun that wasn't there, convinced Silas was standing in the shadows. Ezra would hold her through it, every time, without complaint. "I'm sorry," she'd say. "Don't be. It's been 5 years. I should be over this by now." "Some things you don't get over. You just learn to live with them." "Is that what you did? With Martha?" Ezra was quiet for a moment. "I didn't learn to live with it. I just stopped living altogether. Until you came along and reminded me what life was supposed to look like." "Ezra, I mean it. You saved me, Clara. Long before I ever saved you." Ellie's wedding was the happiest day of Clara's life. They held it in the yard, the same yard where Clara and Ezra had married 5 years earlier. The whole town came, even Mrs. Garrett, who cried through the entire ceremony and insisted afterward that she'd always known Ellie would turn out special. "She's beautiful," Ezra said, watching Ellie dance with Daniel. "She is. I remember when she was a scared little girl who wouldn't look me in the eye. Now look at her. You helped make her into the woman she is. Her mother did that. I just tried not to mess it up." Clara took his hand. "You didn't mess anything up. You were exactly what we needed." "You too." They danced then, slow and close, the way they had on their own wedding night. The children watched, Jacob pretending to be embarrassed, Hannah smiling, Samuel and Tommy making gagging noises until Clara threatened to withhold dessert. "I love this family," Clara said. "I love you." "Even after 5 years?" "Especially after 5 years." Ezra pulled her closer. "And I'll love you for 50 more. Promise?" "Promise." 10 years later, Clara stood on the porch of the home they'd built together, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. So much had changed. Ellie had 3 children of her own now, 2 girls and a boy. She lived on Daniel's ranch, close enough to visit every Sunday for dinner. Clara loved those dinners, loved watching her grandchildren play in the yard, where her own children had once played. Jacob had married a schoolteacher from back east. They lived in town, where Jacob ran a carpentry business that had become so successful he'd had to hire 3 assistants. Hannah had shocked everyone by deciding not to marry at all. She'd gone to teacher's college instead, and now ran the town schoolhouse with an iron fist and a gentle heart. The children adored her. Samuel was 19, engaged to a neighbor's daughter, already talking about building a house on the north section of Ezra's land. And Tommy, wild, reckless Tommy, had joined the cavalry. He was stationed at Fort Laramie, sending letters home that made Clara laugh and cry in equal measure. "You're thinking too loud again," Ezra said, settling into the chair beside her. "Old habits." "What about this time?" Clara smiled. I was thinking about that first night, when I knocked on your door with 4 starving children and a desperate prayer. Worst night of your life? Best night of my life. Ezra raised an eyebrow. How do you figure? Because it led to this. She gestured at the ranch, at the life they'd built. All of this. If I hadn't lost everything, I never would have found you. That's a hell of a way to look at it. It's the truth. Ezra took her hand, the same hand that had grabbed his boot 15 years ago, refusing to let go. I used to think my life ended when Martha died, he said quietly. I used to believe that all the good things were behind me, and all I had left was waiting to die. And now? Now I know that endings are just beginnings in disguise. I lost my wife and son, and I thought I lost everything. But I didn't. I just hadn't found you yet. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Ezra, you saved me, Clara Cade. You and those children. You knocked on my door and refused to leave until I remembered what living was supposed to feel like. He squeezed her hand. And I'm going to spend every day I have left thanking God for that. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. I love you, she said. I love you too. Always have, always will. They sat together as the sun sank below the horizon. 2 people who'd been broken by life and rebuilt by love. Behind them, the house glowed warm with lamplight. Around them, the ranch stretched out in all directions, proof of everything they'd built together. Clara thought about the woman she'd been 15 years ago. Desperate, starving, ready to beg a stranger for a place in his barn. She thought about the woman she was now. Loved, safe, surrounded by children and grandchildren, and a life she'd never dared to dream. The journey from one to the other hadn't been easy. There had been blood and pain and loss. There had been moments when she'd wanted to give up, when the weight of survival had felt too heavy to bear. But she hadn't given up, and neither had Ezra. Together, they'd turned a desperate knock into a lasting love. A burned-down man into a devoted father. A broken family into a legacy that would outlive them both. No regrets? Ezra asked. Clara smiled. Not a single one. Not even the hard parts? Especially not the hard parts. They made us who we are. Ezra kissed her temple. Then I reckon we did all right. Better than all right. We did everything. The stars began to emerge, one by one. The same stars they'd watched together on their wedding night, and every night since. The same stars that would watch over their children and grandchildren and all the generations yet to come. Clara closed her eyes and breathed deep. This was her life, her love, her home. And it had all started with a desperate knock and a door that finally opened. Some people spend their whole lives searching for happiness. Some people give up before they ever find it. But Clara Cade had learned the greatest truth of all, that even in the darkest moments, when everything seems lost, redemption is only one knock away. You just have to be brave enough to ask. And sometimes, just sometimes, someone on the other side will be brave enough to answer. That was the real miracle. Not that they'd survived, not that they'd healed, but that 2 broken people had found the courage to try again, to love again, to hope again, to build again. And in the end, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.